Fucking riveting. For most of my life, I haven't been able to experience the newest and most beloved games due to many factors, but mostly being broke. Now that I have adult money, I plan to play all the games I never got to play and share my experiences with you and give a proper in-depth review of the game. Join me now as I experience The Witcher. 2007 saw a lot of releases. Pokemon Diamond Pearl, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Halo 3, WoW's Burning Crusade expansion, Oblivion, BioShock, fucking ass ends Creed. Overall, 2007 is seen as one of the greatest years in gaming history, but the one game that had always stuck in my head as one I wanted desperately to play was The Witcher. I had saw the original Zero Punctuation on it and had looked it up. I wasn't a PC gamer, and as the game had no console port, I wasn't able to pick it up for that either. Saddened, I decided not to look into it should I ever be able to pick it up, and recently I was able to obtain the Enhanced Edition on Steam, along with 2 and 3. There's a second season of the Netflix show I haven't seen yet, so let's kick the series off proper and take a look at The Witcher 2007. The game opens with a cutscene, and narrator tells us who Geralt is, the White Wolf of Riveria, as he's called, is preparing to cure a king's daughter from a curse known as a Strigger, which basically just turns her into a big blood-sucking monster. This cutscene perfectly sets the tone for what we're going to see in this game. Geralt has 2 swords, one for animals and humans and one for monsters. I am not entirely sure why, but we're just going to go with it. He knocks back potions in advance to help with his combat, and he meditates to wait for important times. After one of the most cinematic opening cutscenes in history, we are treated to 2007 graphics cutscene. Yeah, even being the enhanced version, the game still takes a fucking nosedive into the uncanny valley. And I'm not going to harp on the graphics too much, as any gamer worth their salt knows graphics don't make the game, but it's still rather jarring to go from this to this. Anyway, we see Geralt in a time described as 5 years after the Great War, running from something. He trips and falls as 2 guys who look a lot like him approach him. They place him on a cart, and he's going to start being escorted back to what they call home. This is Kaer Morhen. Scene change, and Geralt is standing next to the subject of my masturbation sessions for the rest of this playthrough, a fiery redhead sorceress named Triss Merigold. She brings up how she is glad he is alive after all, and they share a moment where she asks if he remembers anything. Ah, yes, that old storytelling chestnut. Our hero has amnesia. A perfect through line for why we have to level all of our skills, find new weapons, rediscover spells and potion recipes, and also allows the game to treat the protagonist as a blank slate who can ask questions we want to know. Not my favorite plot point in the world, but it'll suffice for what we're doing here. While they watch the dude spar with another, a voice asks Geralt if he thinks that this whipping young lad, named Leo, is ready for the path. One of the other lads, however, senses a disturbance in the force and goes to check it out. Outside is a bunch of copy-pastes of the same 3 dudes, and one of them says someone named the Professor has promised them 50 orens for every freaks they kill, orens being the currency of this world, and freaks being the Witchers. This Witcher, despite being alone, unleashes ham on the ass and runs back, shutting the gate behind him, creating a barrier, only letting a few in. Vesemir, the old dude from the beginning, tells Geralt to grab his sword and get ready to fight. This is a good time to mention 3 difficulties: easium, medium, and hard. Pretty standard, but with the descriptions it makes it sound like there's large jumps between the 3, which is a nice touch. Easy states that you don't need alchemy to survive. You might think this is setting up some kind of like hunger mechanic or something. It's not. It's simply referring to how often and useful potions are, and we will get to that later. Intermediate says potions are useful and will aid you greatly, and hard says, "Hey yo, if you don't use potions, we will kick in your door, kick your cat in the balls, and hold your face down in the armpit of a drowner." I'm a dedicated medium man though, so I chose the middle, and we can finally get to that combat I so enticed you with earlier in the beginning of the game. Combat in this game is, well, let's be completely fucking honest, it's super boring. Combat requires you to know 3 things. 1, click the sword when it's flaming for combos. 2, which stance fits your situation. Heavy for large armored opponents, light for quick and fast opponents, and loosely hold your sword like someone sneezed on it on the handle for large groups who are getting ready for a bukkake. And the third thing is which kind of sword you need to use on which kind of enemy, which we'll get into later after we've acquired 2 different kinds of swords. Anyway, we clean up the banditos. Our group runs up the steps to see the gates crash open and something called a frightener, basically a big-ass praying mantis. Vesemir tells Geralt to go and close the gate to block its path, and Triss sees this weird muscular dude. She says he's a powerful sorcerer that she doesn't know, and we should definitely be careful. And she also mentions that the guy with the sorcerer is someone named the Professor. Making your way through some more bandits, we are introduced to a few more mechanics, mainly the stun mechanic, which once you get the art, don't worry, I'll get to that, you will use a lot. It's basically a free kill on anything you stun, and it can't be done to bosses, but everything else in the game can be stunned with the right buffs and techniques, so you can get some pretty easy kills to help you through the absolutely dreadful combat system. Geralt comes to some steps that are collapsing, jumps like he's on the fucking moon, and closes the gate, locking out the Frightener. A cutscene plays, and Geralt posits that the sorcerer and the professor are being held up in the keep. And Triss mentions they are probably here to rob the Witchers of something called mutagens. Apparently mutagens are what makes Witchers, gives them their access to arts, superhuman fighting abilities, etc., etc. Vesemir gives us a couple of potions, a Thunderbolt, which we will use this one time and never again, and a Swallow, which regenerates health. This is the single most useful potion in the game, and one of 2 that you will use throughout the majority of the game if you have any sense and don't want to waste time. Drinking potions, however, informs you of something called toxicity bar. Essentially, the more potions you drink, the more effects you are under, this bar fills up. As it fills up, it affects your combat movement speed, and if it's ever full, Geralt just straight dies. But again, you won't be drinking that many potions until literally the very last area, so you needn't worry about it. Going inside the keep, we make our way down to the lab. The sorcerer dude drops the ceiling, and Leo tells me there's a circle of elements right behind us. How convenient. This circle of elements is going to give us the Ard art. There are 5 arts in this game. Ard, which is force push, Erden, which places a trap on the ground, Igni to embrace your inner Sasuke, Quinn for don't touch me there, this is my private square, and Axii, which is supposed to make people all lovey-dovey on you, but I cast it like twice and it didn't really seem to do anything, so I can't tell you exactly how it works. For the most part, the arts or signs, whichever one you want to call them, are pretty useless. Ard and Igni are the most common ones I used, and occasionally in the late game I'd use Quinn. I tried using Erden, but it never really seemed to do much, so I just cast it to the side. We only have Ard for now, but I wanted to get the signs out of the way because I won't be talking about them later on. In any case, signs use endurance. You right-click to use signs. This adds another layer to combat. It's not complex or a deep layer, mind you. It doesn't require much thought, and it doesn't help to spice up the boring combat. It just occasionally lets you break up the monotony with more monotony. Anyway, we break the rubble in our way. Sorcerer dude makes a magical barrier. Geralt says we need Triss, so we go back up to the surface, and here we have our first choice in the game. Go with Triss and fight the sorcerer, or go with the boys and take down the Frightener. Let me speak directly for a moment here. Choices in this game actually matter. Like, they have real weight and consequences on the way that the story progresses. It doesn't change key story elements. That would be far too complicated, especially for 2007, but it changes a lot. Buffs, items, EXP, what allies you run into, what kind of monsters you can actually end up fighting later on, all the way into the late game, who shows up to help you, who doesn't show up to fight you, even what characters will deal with you. The cost of some items in this game can even change based off the choices that you make, and you will have no way of knowing what those choices did until later on after their effects come into play. I really, really enjoyed this choice system, and it's something that if I were to sing this game's praises, would be one of the biggest parts of this game that not only gives it a lot of replayability, in my opinion. I mean, I'm serious. After I'm done doing this review, I'm going to go play the damn game again and choose different things just to see how it unfolds. But it's definitely 100% a real choice system, and I can't praise that enough. So I have a confession at this point. I did play this game for about 4 hours before making this review. Actually ended up getting this game probably about 3 months before actually sitting down to do this review, and I played it on stream for 4 hours. During that playthrough, I chose to go with Triss, and I found out through a Salt Factory video that it's actually better to go with the boys, as you get a rare item that allows you to craft a pretty good early game sword, and the Triss path gives you a sapphire, which can be sold for some good early game money. At this point in my experience, I didn't think money was that important, as I'm used to games like Skyrim where money rains from the heavens and you could take every useless item you find and pawn it off for even more money. So fuck it, I cried. I'm gonna just go with the boys and see if I can get this rare material. Triss is hot and powerful. She can handle herself. So we get our first boss fight and we're introduced to a mechanic that will be used exactly 3 times this entire game. Special conditions. We'll talk about the other 2 fights when we get to them, but for now, let's focus on the Frightener. Now, I'll tell you, I died to this thing 3 fucking times. The first time, I killed all its mates and rushed it, where it parried all of my blows and killed me. The second time, I ran to the bell because Vesemir mentioned in the cutscene where I had to open the gate that the bell is something that's really important, so I activate the bell, rush it, where I get manhandled. On my 3rd try, I tried to guide it around the battlefield and let the NPCs handle it, but the damn thing still kills me. The Ard knocks it down, but it stands right back up. So for the first time of many times in my playthrough, I look something up. Turns out you have to do is the Ard on the bell and the 2 cauldrons, and this thing will get stun locked. I reload the save to find out that Vesemir already told me this, and I wasn't paying attention. We kill the Frightener, Triss shows up through a wormhole and passes out. Me and Leo rush back to the lab to try to stop the Professor and the Sorcerer. But the Sorcerer does something he's really good at in this fucking game, running away, leaving us to fight the Professor. The Professor mentions Witchers can parry bolts in flight, turns to shoot a flanking Leo. Geralt, instead of taking this opening to charge and kill the dude 3 feet away from him, throws his damn sword, barely missing, and the Professor fucks off through a portal. Vesemir comes in and, oh no. No. This can't be. Leo dies! I don't care. I absolutely loathe when games do this. We've known this character for essentially 5 minutes, shared like 2 cutscenes with him, one of which is when he fucking died, and we are expected to care about him dying. Make character deaths mean something. Attach me to the characters for fuck's sakes, and make it mean something. Do you guys remember The Legend of Dragoon? If you haven't, it's the greatest fucking game ever made. In that game, there is a character that you meet hella early on. You spend all your time with this character. You travel with him, talk with him, mingle with him, you go to a special fighters tournament with him, you rescue somebody with him, you meet his fucking mom, for God's sakes. And at the end of a certain point in the game, that character dies a very heroic death. That was a game I cried literal tears over. When that character died, I cried as if I lost a real friend, because it was a truly immersive experience that we got to know the character for. In this game, Leo's nothing but fucking cannon fodder to make us feel like Geralt actually has a personal stake in this entire goddamn attack, when he doesn't actually remember what the mutagens are, and he doesn't remember anything else. But we have to pretend like this character that he is in canon, only known for a couple days, means so much to him that he is willing to travel to the ends of the earth to find these attackers and kick their ass. Whatever, bro. Triss is injured. Time to make her a healing potion. We go see Lambert. He tells us to get some alcohol and some other ingredients and clear out the rest of Kaer Morhen. And at this point, I start to notice something. Throughout this review, I will have several moments where I record my reaction to certain things or observations I made in the moment of that game. When these are on screen, I will have a title card shown at the top right corner. But here's something I noticed early on. Take it away, past me. One thing I'm starting to notice in this game is that Geralt moves really slow. I hope this doesn't become a problem later. So after we get the ingredients, we are introduced to 2 mechanics: skinning kills and potion makings. We are also told that the skin a kill, we have to have knowledge about that kill, and I'll talk more on that later. Potion making in this game is not as complicated as the game will have you believe. Every potion you will ever need has a recipe you can buy or find, and you can simply make these while you meditate. This game's equivalent of sleeping. Simply click on the one you want to make, and if it's not grayed out, you can make it, click mix, done and done. The game offers you to experiment, but no one will fucking do that, and you bring the potion to Triss. She takes it and heals up, and now we come across one of the most prominent collectibles in this game. Poke tits, gotta fuck 'em all. You know it's our destiny, Gerald. Ooh, you're my best friend in the bedroom. Poke tits. After that, we have Leo's funeral. I felt more sad when I found out we were out of Mama's potato salad, and everyone agrees to split up to hunt down the Salamandra, aka the group that attacked us. As Triss is leaving, we approach her. She says she doesn't like goodbye, and Gerald tells Triss he felt something with the most emotionless face in the fucking world. I get it. This is 2007, but come on, you guys couldn't move an eyebrow or something. We also get to experience Gerald's awful, god-awful voice acting.
I can and find you in Vizima.
Triss.
Don't, Geralt. I detest goodbyes. I'm liable to cry, and there's nothing more pathetic than a sorceress in tears. Don't get killed, Geralt. I don't think I could deal with that again. I'll see you soon.
See you, Triss.
Really noticeable at first, but now here where he's trying to show actual emotions, it's really noticeable. We bid farewell to everyone and we make our way south where the King of Temeria, whose daughter we cured in the opening scene, lies. Thoughts on the prologue. So this is the second time I played through the prologue, and after my initial playthrough, I completely stopped on this game and didn't decide to pick it up again until the decision to make this video was made. And I'll say that this playthrough of the prologue is a little bit better than my last because I kind of knew what I was supposed to be doing this time around. And I also took extra time to explore the rest of Kaer Morhen and find other stuff. So I ended up finding a lot more potion ingredients. I now understand that I have to equip a potion into a hot slot in order to be able to use it a lot more quickly. I now kind of understand the mechanics a little bit better because I took the time to read the tutorials a lot deeper. But there's still a lot of problems that I noticed. The opening of this video showed you guys exactly what I feel about the combat thus far. And I can definitely tell you that I hope, I can only hope that something about the combat will improve. Let's talk about the leveling system for a second. So in this playthrough, they don't really explain to you how leveling works all that well. You basically have to figure it out for yourself. But essentially what happens is that you, every time you level up, you get a certain amount of talent points, and then you can go through the menus when you meditate at a campfire and assign those talent points to individual slots. I only know from my previous playthrough of like 4 hours that I had to get a bronze talent for gathering plants in order to gather potions effectively. And potions are practically a necessity in the worlds of The Witcher and its gameplay. That being said, new players are definitely not going to understand that you have to invest certain talent points into certain skill trees in order to complete basic functions of the game, and that's definitely an entire problem. But with us going into chapter 1 and the whole Bargeist thing, with chapter 1 with the Bargeist and the Reverend and everything, I am really excited to kind of see what I can do this time around, knowing what I'm supposed to be doing, kind of, as opposed to the original playthrough I had where I just kind of stumbled a lot. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into chapter 1 and see what it has to offer. Past me did remind me about a leveling system, but there's no better way to explain it other than how I did there. You level up with EXP, or you level up with experience points. You get a certain number of talents assigned to certain parts of each tree: bronze, silver, and gold. This is to help balance the game and ensure you don't dump all your points into one skill. I like it a lot, actually. Looking back on the system, I actually really enjoyed it, and I hope it becomes the standard in future games. Our first chapter starts with a woman and a kid wandering home after a long day of no doubt running through flower fields and swinging from trees as they laid there wondering if life could get better. "Will you ever leave me, Big Sis?" No, little brother, I'll never leave. So anyway, some demon dogs chase him down, and Alvin, the kid, barely makes it into the gates, and the big sister dies, or mother dies, or, you know, I actually don't know who this lady's supposed to be to this kid, but yeah, she dies. Some dumb bloke opens the gate to save the lady who's already dead and let the demon dogs in, and Geralt helps killed. The kid then gets possessed and spouts out some prophecy of which I played through the whole game and still don't understand. After that, Geralt begins talking to a lady named Shani, the first of many people from Geralt's past he doesn't remember, and the second subject of my masturbation sessions in this game. Much like Geralt, I love redheads. Leave me alone. Shani tells him that she is heading to Vizima to help the victims of a plague that is currently going on, but first we need a rest for the night, so we sleep in the inn. I want to mention here that I'm going to be skipping the vast majority of side questing in this video. I did it in game actually, and I'll reference it occasionally whenever something comes up that I feel needs to be talked about, but I want to keep this video below 13.5 hours, so I'll try to stick to the story for the most part. The main side quests in this game are Witcher contracts. There are instructions to go and kill monsters and bring parts of the monsters to certain NPCs and receive money and EXP rewards. The catch being that in order to get the parts from the monsters, you need to buy books and research the damn things first. Books cost money, so you're almost always spending more money than the quest actually gives you, but the EXP is 100% worth it. There is one problem with side questing that I noticed pretty early on. So, in the middle of doing the story quest, I picked up a couple of other side quests, and I wanted to kind of talk to you guys. Do you guys remember earlier in the video when I mentioned that Geralt is really slow? Well, it's starting to become a really big problem. See, the problem that I have ultimately is that it takes forever to get where you need to go. Now, don't get me wrong, I am under the shared agreement with a lot of veteran gamers that fast travel in games has kind of ruined the experience of making games feel big. In something like Skyrim, for example, I fast travel all the time because it saves me a lot of time and energy, but that makes the big, large, open map feel very tiny and insignificant when you do it as often as you do. So I'm not exactly mad that this game lacks a fast travel system, but what I am mad is that it lacks a fucking sprint function so that I could get to things in a timely manner. With the game's day-night cycle that it likes to perpetuate, being able to walk from place to place is, you know, very interesting because it means that at any moment it could go night and you could be ambushed and have to fight your way to the places that you need to be. However, I am very impatient. And this is struggling. This is hurting me. Why is there no sprint function in this game? With that out of the way, Shani told me earlier to ask the Reverend about Salamandra. Reverend tells me to fuck off until the beast is dead. So how do we kill this beast? Track its origins, find its lair, have a big boss battle? No, he wants me to light some fucking candles. Outstanding. And he requires it to happen at night just to really piss in my Cheerios. The way you wait around in this game is not like in later games like Skyrim or Oblivion or something like that where you could just kind of pause the game and choose to wait. You actually have to find a campfire or a resting position. So buying a room at the end, which is never actually a real room. You just kind of like kneel in a corner somewhere or talk to somebody who will put you up to the night for free. And then you can wait until a certain time, which is conveniently shown on a clock, which I kind of like. One of the unforeseen consequences of ADHD, which is also completely foreseen if you have any kind of common sense, which I don't, is that sometimes you're going to end up missing very important things whenever you're writing a script as long as this. I already have the entire script recorded, and I have no interest in trying to re-record it as it's taken me several hours. So instead, I'm going to shove a little tidbit in here, of which past me was really excited about trying to talk about, seeing as how he recorded his self talking to the camera. So I'm going to give you guys some context and then give you the clip of unscripted me talking about the context. So while we're lighting the candles for Reverend Retard, we come across Vanessa, the barmaid from the inn. She's about to be gang raped by a bunch of guys. So we step in, say nay nay, slice all of their heads off with our swords, and then escort her back to her house. Whenever we get back there, she asks, "How can I repay you?" And Gerald's like, "Well, we could bang." And she's like, I don't know about that. Because it turns out that her Nan is home. And Nan might have a heart attack if she sees Vanessa getting the Geralt girth. And so she says to meet her to the mill after dark. We go to the mill after dark, give her some alcohol, and she bangs us.
What is it? Something haunts the old mill again.
Seems so. Maybe we need a Witcher to look into it.
Ah, they're never around when you need them. It'll have to wait. Any monster here today will stay until tomorrow. Certainly no sense in sending anyone else.
And we get another card to our Pokey Tits collection. Of course, I rescued her and I got her to the thing, and it turns out that you get the bone, Vanessa, for doing this, which is great. I like to think that that there was an artist somewhere that drew a bunch of women in lewd poses and then brought that stack to the developers and was like, "Hey, can we put this in the game somehow?" There's no point to the sex like collection system that I've found. Like, you don't get like experience as far as I know, or maybe you do, I don't know. I've discovered that this game has a very weird way of presenting experience. While most games have like a large bar that you can see somewhere, and it'll kind of, when you kill something, it'll tell you how much experience you've gained. This game does tell you how much experience you've gained from like killing monsters, but it'll float so fast by the screen that you won't even notice it. And there's this blue bar around the portrait of the wolf medallion thing in the top right corner, and I think that is the experience bar. But you, in terms, you don't really get told how much experience you gain from the things you do. So maybe after romancing a woman, you do get sex. I don't fucking, or you do get sex. After romancing a woman, you do get experience points. But as far as I know, the only point to this is to see those collectible cards, which you can actually access in your journal. I'm going to continue to try to do as much of them as I can organically. And you know, maybe it'll turn out really cool. He also tells me that he'll only help me when I help the villagers, gives me a ring, and sends me to talk to 3 wankers. The first wanker is Heron, who needs drowners, the game's most common enemy, so get used to them. They are stopping him from accessing his supplies. Before I wait for nighttime to take care of these drowners, I stumble across a bunch of racist dickheads about to beat up a dwarf. I step in, cut their dicks off, and I find out that the dwarf's name is Zoltan, another old friend from Gerald's past. Surprised like many to see me alive after I apparently died before the game's events. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention earlier, every single person you come across from Gerald's past is surprised to see you alive. I was thinking about picking up the Audible books to see what events led to this game, which is also when I realized exactly how much I care about the story, and we'll get to that later. Anyway, I wait for nighttime, kill the drowners, and at the end of them, a group called the Scoia'tael, or Squirrels, a group of non-human freedom fighters, show up and say Haran was supposed to sell them supplies. I don't really care if they're lying, because the fact of the matter is that every human you run into that's not from your past so far has been a right dick about the fact that you're a witcher. So, you know what? I just gave the Scoia'tael those supplies. They gave me some money, which I'm going to pocket, and Haran can go fuck himself. I go back to Haram, tell him to shut up and pay me for killing the drowners, tell him that the Scoia'tael took his supplies, don't give a right fuck what he has to say, and move on. The next night, I light all the candles and I go back to the Reverend. He tells me it didn't work, surprise, surprise, and I need to go to the witch Abigail, as it's obviously her fault for being a witch. Yay, medieval times. On my way to Abigail, I stop by this fuckwit named Odo. He's the next villager I need to help, and his house is on the way, so I talk to him. He gets me drunk, and then he needs me to kill some plants in his front yard, whip the shit out of the plants, and go back to him where he pays me, and then it's off to the witch. Abigail thinks the answer lays in the boy Alvin, the one from the beginning. Apparently has a great magical powers of prophecy. To make his powers awaken, we need to go pick some fucking flowers. I get the flowers, and she tells me to come back later. So I leave and go talk to Mikul, the last of the wankers I need to help. He tells me to go kill some ghouls in a crypt, and I find a dead girl and some ghouls and take them out. I go back to him and report it, and here we get attacked by the salamander after wiping them out. We get the first of many cutscenes describing the results of our choice in the prologue.
A new threat. And I know why we now face it. Lambert. Eskel. Vesemir. Leave them on their own to save useless filters and flasks? But battling the Frightener took time. Too much time to stop Salamandra from stealing the alchemy equipment. The plot thickens. They've begun experimenting. That mutated dog was just the beginning.
This was what I was talking about, things having consequences. Because we weren't there to help Triss, Salamandra were able to escape with more mutagens than if we were there, and managed to make this mutated dog thing. Go back to Abigail and she gives Alvin the potion. Turns out the beast is caused by the horrors of human wickedness. Go talk to the Reverend and he still blames the witch because of fucking course he does. Whatever, I need to go to his basement and bury some lad from one of the side quests. I bury the head and the fucking Grim Reaper shows up and tells me because I avoided death, Leo had to die. Leo's ghost shows up and I kill him. One of the reasons that I love to play games as close to completion as I possibly can by doing as many side quests and finding collectibles and stuff like that is that sometimes games will do this really great thing where side questing unlocks more lore to the world. The Elder Scrolls games, well, Skyrim, I haven't played any of the other Elder Scrolls games at this point, is a really great example of this, where if you go on faction quests and you go on side quests in general, you can learn a lot more about the world, the history of the world building. In something like The Witcher, however, there's not just a world, but there is also a character, Geralt, who you are controlling. And this side quest in general starts with something as innocuous as go see if my friend died, and ends with Geralt confronting the fact that he's not supposed to be alive, or at least that's the implication that I got from this specific quest. I really hope that more side quests in this game end up like this, where we start to learn more about Geralt and the world and everything like that. I'm really hoping that the side questing that I'm doing in this game is worth the trade-off that it's going to be for me to take longer to release this video, as it'll take longer for me to complete this game. So after helping all three of the wankers and the Reverend tells me where the Salamander hideout is, I go in, die several times, and find out very quickly that this game does not autosave, like ever. It happens maybe every 2 to 3 hours, and it's such a pain in the ass. Thank fuck for quick save. You'll be hammering that button a lot throughout this game. I clear the cave out, and I come across Abigail, who is telling me that people are waiting outside to kill her. To convince me of her innocence, she bones me.
Pokey tits.
Okay, I have to know. Does everything in this game lead to sex? I'm honestly surprised that they didn't let you sex up Shawnee when you saved her from the rapist earlier. It's starting to really baffle me. So earlier in the game, while I was doing my side questing, I discovered that if you gave tulips to a peasant woman, she'll just bone you. Just right there. This was such a bizarre, random way. It was just like, my sins are not as great as you think. I'll prove it to you by getting my tits out. And then the card art has her hand bloodied and coming across. I mean, it's hot. Don't get me wrong. There's got to be a limit, right? There's got to be, how bad? Hold on, I'm looking this up. Oh my God. So there's this website called Mark's RPG Center. And underneath The Witcher, there's a section for women. These are all the women in the game that you can romance. Now, I'm not going to read how you do it, but I'm going to count here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. You can romance you can fuck. This isn't romancing, by the way. You can fuck 26 women across 5 chapters. This is going to be a long game. Outstanding. Turns out the villagers refuse to take responsibility for the beast. See, as it turns out, Heron deals dirty. Odo killed his brother for money. Mickey Mouse raped and poisoned his girlfriend, and the Reverend kicked his daughter out of the village when she got pregnant. They say the witch made him do it, but after she did me, I'm inclined to protect her. We get the most badass scene in video game history.
Together! Is that so?
Begone, Witcher, and leave the witch, or we'll burn you too.
I'd like to see you try, pleb.
Ah!
Shove off, and maybe I'll let you be. You have 2 options. Wait until I leave and then murder Abigail, but then I'll come back. I'll slay every lice-ridden peasant, anything that moves and can't climb a tree. Or you can try to lead honorable lives, clear your conscience, start again, like humans. The choice is yours.
Editor Kaiser here. I guess now I'm talking in 3 different POVs, live, scripted, and editor. But I just wanted to point out that one thing that I noticed while editing this video, revisiting story elements, and watching cutscenes like the one I just showed you, I'm starting to really understand one of the biggest draws to this game that I never noticed before during the live versions and the scripted version. And that's that I just love Gerald. Like, throughout the course of the game, you're going to see that your decisions ultimately change the kind of person he is. In fact, in Chapter 3, there's a side quest called Identity that updates as you do story quests and make decisions that kind of signify this Gerald as the Gerald that you build. But no matter what direction you take Gerald, no matter what decisions you make, he does all of them with an extreme confidence. When you want to make Gerald a character who cares about the people in this world, be they monster, human, or non-human, then that Gerald steadfast believes in protecting people. I have not played with any other decisions, but I can tell you that from watching other people's playthroughs as a kind of research before doing this video, I realized that when you do other things, when you choose to side with the Order later on down the road, don't worry, Scripted Me is going to talk about that. When you choose to side with the Order, you can, Gerald becomes a steadfast anti-human or non-human hater, right? He does everything with confidence and creativity. And while some of the personality traits that other people have decided to give Gerald, I don't personally agree with, I do love how confident this character is. And when you're not talking about those decisions, right, when you're just looking at Gerald from the storyteller's perspective, when you're just looking at him as a character interacting with the world and the people, and you're going through the motions, you start to really see the confidence in Gerald. I made fun of his voice acting back in the prologue, but here, as the game is going on, I think Gerald's voice actor has started to really come into an identity of his own and started to really bond with the character of Gerald. I don't know what happened behind the scenes in the voice acting, but the voice actor becomes a lot more confident as the game progresses, and I really love this character that's being built. I still have not ordered the books, and I am so close to doing it because I just love this world and the character of Gerald. Just wanted to get that out there. And then we go to kill the beast. After the beast is dead, the villagers show up and I kill them as well. Once that is said and done, I loot a pass that allows me to get into Vizima off the Reverend's body, go grab Shani at the inn, and we head to Vizima finally to be able to go in. Oh wait, never mind. Geralt gets arrested for, I don't know, helping people with yellow eyes or something. So that was chapter 1 of The Witcher. I got to admit, with my first playthrough of this game, playthrough, if you could even call it that, my first hour experience in this game, coming back to it to play it for this video specifically, I'm liking it a little bit better. I'm letting go of a lot of my initial first impressions with the combat system and the slowness of Geralt's movements and all of that, and just the kind of aggravating way that this game works sometimes, and I'm starting to kind of warm up to it. I wouldn't say it's a particularly good game so far, but I keep mentioning the atmosphere and the story. The way that this game makes you feel emotionally is really cool. You love it when Geralt's a badass. You love it when the game lets you kind of exist inside of its world. There are still some bad aspects. The slowness of Geralt is really starting to weigh on me. Toward the end there, when I was doing the final quest line for the main quest of chapter 1, I was so bored. I'm looking actually at my notes that I take right now. I put little time codes in the recording for things that I want to talk about, and there is literally 2 to 3 minutes separating a lot of the markers where a lot of the story is actually taking place, and it's pretty bad. It's really bad. For example, the end of fighting with the people after you slay the beast is like a minute and a half later is when you actually talk to Shawnee at the end. Like, it takes you a minute and a half to jog Gerald's fat ass all the way over there. And then from talking with Shawnee, you actually have to walk from the inn all the way back to the gates of Vizima, which is it doesn't look far on the map, but it takes you a couple minutes. And every time you have to slough through this kind of walking section without anything really happening, it starts to weigh on you a little bit. I'm kind of hoping that being inside of the city gates now, I'm going to perhaps have a lot more things to do and look at, things to kind of stimulate my mind, because as it stands now, anytime I have to travel and do miscellaneous type stuff, I just put on a YouTube video or a podcast or something to keep me occupied with the absolute insanity that it is to slog through this game. Picture this. You are a content creator who has been desperately trying to find his identity for the last 3, 4, 5, let's say 7 years, and you finally decide that what you really want to do with your life is deep dives. For your first deep dive, you decide to dive into a game you've never played before and make that the premise of the series that you're planning to start. This very first one needs to go absolutely perfect. Everything needs to fall into place because this is your first one and you want to make a good first impression. And then you go to record a part of the video and realize that exactly 9.5 hours of gameplay footage is corrupted. An entire chapter. So the original plan here, and actually something that I kind of did, was to go back through and get all the gameplay footage for this chapter again by just replaying the chapter. And while that is a perfectly valid solution, one thing that is completely missing from this was my chapter 2 live reaction. I also thought about it, and I wanted to kind of do something a little bit different for chapter 2, seeing as how chapter 2 is unique in the fact that it's the only chapter that I can't fucking stand. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly relay the story of Chapter 2 to you, and then I'm going to talk about the game a little bit and why I hate Chapter 2. I'm going to be doing a direct camera for this entire chapter, so just kind of bear with me, maybe tab out, play a video game while you listen to the video. I can understand that looking at me for an extended period of time will cause you to fall madly in love, and seeing as how you can't have me because I have a dedication to my comedy, my video games, and masturbating, it can never be. I'm sorry. One thing I neglected to mention in the first chapter was that every single chapter in this game has multiple story quests that eventually end to the same point. In chapter 1, helping out the 3 wankers and killing the beast allowed you to eventually go to the salamander hideout and kill the reverend and get yourself into Vizima. In chapter 2, the 2 side quests are that you need to get a bunch of things called Sephiroth from Kingdom Hearts, gemstone type things, and put them in these obelisks in order to unlock a mage tower for an alchemist named Kalkstein, who you met in the first chapter. And the second thing is to try to discover who is behind hiring Salamandra and funding them. To do that, you're going to talk to this detective guy named Raymond, who I'll get to in just a minute. The chapter actually starts off with you in jail being arrested at the end of chapter 1. The captain of the guard walks in and tells you that whoever kills the cockatrice in the sewer is going to get a pardon. This big absolute loaf of a man thinks that he's going to beat a fucking cockatrice with his bare fist, so we beat the shit out of him for the privilege, and then we go down to the sewers. In the sewers, we meet a character named Siegfried, who I absolutely love. Siegfried is a member of the Order of the Flaming Rose, a group of absolute bastards who think that non-humans are lower than filth, and who are basically the knights of this world. Now, Siegfried himself is kind of an outlier from the rest of this order. You don't actually meet that many members of the order, so I'm not really sure exactly how much of an outlier he is, but he is a pretty good character. I'm going to go into some D&D stuff real quick, and it's going to piss off a bunch of D&D nerds. And if you disagree with me, I want you all to know that I'm very open to not giving a shit what you have to say. But Siegfried is the definition of lawful good. He's a genuinely good person who follows the law to the letter, meaning that no matter what the law says, he's going to follow it, but he follows it for his own moral reasons. The Order of the Flaming Rose not only thinks non-humans are filth, that's just what the king says, non-humans are not worth it, but they also protect people by killing monsters, and that's kind of the reason that Siegfried joined. Siegfried's a very deep and complex side character who I really enjoy interacting with throughout the entire game. And I think that it's incredibly sad when eventually you have to kill him. Don't cry about spoilers now, you're already almost halfway through this video. So anyway, Siegfried joins us in the sewers and he helps us kill the cockatrice, tells us to go talk to Detective Raymond. Now here's the thing about going talk to the detective. I purposely didn't start that quest because I saw it as a story quest and instead wanted to do a bunch of side quests first. The side questing eventually led me to the Sephora gemstone type thing that had to be put in the obelisks, and you can get every single one of those gemstones except for one. That last one that you have to get has to come from talking to the detective, and I only found out by going through a walkthrough. So I went ahead and I went talk to the detective to start the story quest. The detective makes us pay him some money, and then he says that there's a bunch of suspects that we need to look into. So we go look into all these suspects, and it turns out that all of them are innocent. We go back to the detective, our medallion starts vibrating, which tells us that there's an enemy nearby, and he tells us to go do some other stuff. We go do some other stuff, come back, and there's all of a sudden a world map on his wall showing the border between Samaria and the neighboring kingdom, and there's some drugs on his desk. Now some stuff starting to get very, very, very sketchy. As part of the story quest, we have to go into the cemetery and we go into the crypt, and in the crypt we find Raymond's body. Now that's some really weird paranormal Ghostbuster, Ghost Whisperer, oh my god, Ghost Hunter type shit. So we go over back to Raymond, and you can confront him about all the evidence you have that he's not really Raymond, including the fact that Raymond's literal body is in the fucking crypt. And he'll transform into Alvar. That's the sorcerer from the prologue. We find out his name through this series of quests. And Alvar one-shots you pretty fucking easily. It doesn't matter how many potions you drink or how many of his minions you beat, he'll just one-shot you at one point. I eventually figure out that you can't confront him, so I go talk to Calcastine, and Calcastine says, oh my god, he's a fire mage! Just bring him to the swamp! So we bring him to the swamp with the guy under the guys that were unlocking the mage tower in order to trap Calcastine, because he's trying to frame Calcastine for being the one that's orchestrating the Salamandra. At the Mage's Tower, we actually get to fight the Sorcerer and the Professor once again, and once you get both of them low enough, Alvar ends up casting an almighty, super ancient, magical spell. By the earth and the skies are gray, when my health is low enough, I shall run the fuck away! And once again, him and the Professor fuck off so I can't kill them. Geralt gets knocked out by some gas thing that the Professor throws down, and Triss rescues him from the swamp, and there's a big war cutscene that goes on, and that's the end of chapter 2. Sorry I sped through that, but I just wanted to kind of get this out of the way. I didn't want to spend too much time harping on the story of chapter 2, because that's not the reason that I dislike chapter 2. The reason that I dislike chapter 2 is because it is the biggest chapter in which you fully understand how slow Geralt is. There is a load of running back and forth. And this actually sets up a precedent for another chapter, chapter 4, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But essentially what happens in this entire thing is that you are going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Go talk to Calcastine, go talk to this lady in the swamp, go talk to some druids, go activate a golem and kill him, go back and talk to Calcastine, go talk to a lady at the church. The lady at the church tells you to make an offering in the swamp, so you go back to the swamp. And in order to get to, every time you want to go to the swamp, you have to pay a ferryman 5 orens, right? So there's like, I ended up paying this guy, I paid this dude's rent for like the rest of his life. I had to constantly keep going back and forth. Thankfully, the escape button can skip some cutscenes, save you a few seconds, but the slowness just really sets in. There's also another major problem with navigation that didn't really come up that hard until I got to this point. See, there's 2 different maps like there is in most games. There's the main overhead map, and then there's the mini map in the top right corner. The main overhead map does not do that good of a job of showing you where to go. It's got pathways for the main city, but the swamp is where it's a big problem. It showcases the swamp as this kind of large area that you can just traverse through without a problem. But in fact, there's actually a shitload of invisible walls that exist for practically no reason. And the only way that you'll know how to get around these invisible walls is by keeping an eye on the mini map, where there's these like silver blobs that kind of represent the invisible walls. And when I say no reason, I mean legitimately no reason. You would think that maybe those silver spots, those invisible walls, represent where the swamp is too deep, but that's not the case. There's actually places you can go where the swamp water comes up to Geralt's neck. It's just a bunch of arbitrary crap to make you run around places that doesn't need to be run around in. You should be able to just run straight through. Another problem that comes up is that I ended up dying a lot more in this portion of the game. And I thought that it was because I was underleveled. And that kind of was the case. It kind of wasn't. But there was a special kind of armor that cost 5,000 orens. To put that into perspective, most of the quests that you do and you finish only give you 100 to 300 orens at this point. And there's only so many side quests that you can do. Hey, Editor Kaiser here from The Void. Real quickly, I want to talk to you guys about something I forgot to mention in this recording. There was a point when I realized the cost of this armor that I went onto the forums and I looked for a solution, like maybe there was a better way to do armor, or there was a better way to get money or something like that. And I found a help thread where people were pretty much talking about that the armor is it's pretty much talking about how much is the armor worth, is it worth trying to get, or anything like that. A lot of the community seems to be on the consensus that it's not worth it. I disagree. I think it is worth it, but that's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the thing that you're seeing on your screen right now, where there was this really interesting response that I saw from this player, and the first sentence of this response really puts into perspective this game and what I'm talking about when I say that I like the atmosphere and I like the world of this game. This person says, laziness is your greatest enemy in this very busy game. Those words, very busy game, are the antithesis of how you would describe this game. Nothing in this game is handed to you on a silver platter. Everything in this game is worked for, and I think that that's why at this point that I'm writing this review and I'm thinking about it, I think that's why I'm willing to replay this game for all the flaws that I might bitch about, because at the end of the day, everything is worked for. The end of the story quest is worked for. The monster parts are worked for. The money is worked for. The experience is worked for. The unlocking additional lore through talking to characters and buying books and etc. All of it is worked for. Everything in this game is worked for, and it is a true, honest-to-God adventure. So I actually didn't even get that armor until into Chapter 3, when I was able to do a lot more side quests. And I also realized that if you can find a lot of like gemstones and rings, those are the best things to sell for lots of money. I also ended up looking up the money problem after I was done with the game to discover that certain merchants will buy certain easily gatherable resources for not a lot of orens, but it does add up after a while. But that's just one of the bigger problems that was coming up with the game. Like I said in the beginning of this whole thing, Chapter 2's reaction was not recorded, so we're just going to go ahead and go into Chapter 3. I just wanted to give you guys Chapter 2 really quick, just so you kind of understood what was going on, and I didn't just suddenly skip a chapter on you, but I thought this was, after a lot of deliberating and thinking about it, this was probably the best way for me to do it. And so we begin Chapter 3. We start off by waking up to hear Triss talking to some mysterious person in a mirror. She mentions she won't tell me about something or the other. I never actually found out what the bugger she was going on about to that person in the mirror. And she ends the call to see me awake and decides to test my physical health by, what else? Boning me silly. This is The Witcher, after all, and every solution to every problem can either be solved with slicing something in half or fucking the nearest female-like person. After that, she tells me I need to stop sitting on the fence between the Scoia'tael and the Order, something I have actively not been doing up until this point. I have indeed been helping the Scoia'tael at every turn I had the chance, and despite my love of Siegfried, the rest of the Order are racist dicks who do nothing but cause shit and then get surprised when the shit they cause flies back in their face. Essentially, the Order are what Republicans are, and the Scoia'tael are what Republicans think the Democrats are. Sorry, didn't mean to bring up politics in this extremely political game. Moving on, she also tells me there's some kind of magical anomaly and there's also a party I need to attend. I choose the magic wibbly wobbly first and run around like a damn fool placing these magic balls into magic mouths, which will triangulate like the Beetleborgs beam in that one 1997 movie you kind of forgot about. Go back to Triss and turns out the result of the magic is Alvin, that one kid from chapter 1. She says that Shawnee has him and refuses to give him up, and we need to get her to give Alvin up by dicking her down. I mean, talking to her and bring Alvin back to Triss. Upon entering the temple quarter, Shawnee approaches us and tells us to tell Triss in no uncertain terms to suck her own ass because the child is staying with her. So I'll admit, after playing the game, I found out most people chose to go with Triss, but at this point, me as the player, I don't trust Triss due to her shady shit she did at the beginning of the chapter, so I opt to bring the kid to Shawnee. Of course, he gets kidnapped because why not? Dandelion, a bard from our past, leads us to the hideout and we run in and cut down all of the Salamandra. We ship Alvin off to Shawnee's, and after killing a few more, we go to Shawnee's house. Shawnee said she's proud of us and tells us to go tell Triss to piss off. But before that, Dandelion drags us out for a night of drinking and talking about girls with Zoltan. Just like my high school life. Not likely. We end the night with a trip to a brothel and then go back to Shawnee. She says Alvin needs a father, so we go down, give Alvin whatever we want, give Shawnee a silver amber ring, and she bones us for a second time, giving us her second sex card. Pokey tits! With that out of the way, it's time to go to the party. We go to the inn and go upstairs where we meet several important figures in the kingdom, including the Princess Ada. Triss seems not to be mad at us for some reason. I think this is like the one time the developers didn't have your choice outwardly affect people's attitude towards you. Whatever. In any case, after talking to the guests for a while, Velarand, one of the king's lackeys, tells us Ada needs a good lay, because of course she fucking does. We steal some papers for Thalar, who turns out isn't a fence, but is instead the head of intelligence for the kingdom, tells us Ada's favorite food, and Triss conjures it up. We take Ada to a Witcher wonderland, and she rips off our medallion in the process, which vibrates. Well, fuck. Anyway, after we give Ada the Geralt girth, Triss tells us we need to talk to Declan, who has a proposition for us. Kill the Salamandra, and he gives us money. We were going to do that anyway, but it's nice to be paid for it, I guess, so we go to two locations for the Salamandra, the Temple Quarter and the Swamps. We hit the Temple Quarter first, talk to Jethro, the jailer, who says some dolt's name Augustus is selling drugs for the Salamandra. We go talk to Augustus, he runs away, we follow him, slaughter him in his own home, and take a letter of recommendation off his corpse. Go down to the sewer where the big lads ask for a password. It's worth mentioning here that if you dig through every dialogue option with every NPC, as I did, you'll find that the innkeeper in the trade quarter overheard the password as Thorn. If you don't have the password, though, I'm assuming you could just kill them. That just seems to be the easier way. Anyway, we go in, tell the Salamander blokes we want 1 pound of drugs, and they tell us to wait there, after which we can just walk around. We go to the back, dig in a chest, find some papers that tells us who's one of the leaders is. We get jumped by the Salamandra, and we can fight them here, which I do for a second, but if you run back to the entrance, you'll see a bunch of city guards just hanging out, playing marbles, and talking about girls, and they will help you fight the remainder. After killing all of these guys, you walk out, and Jethro commands you to go kill this Gellert fella by the large grate in the sewers. Geralt tells Jethro, give me orders again, and you won't have a nose to snort those drugs with, and we go kill Geller. After that is to the swamps, talk to Vasaka, this old lady in the swamps that we talked to in chapter 2, and she says her people are being held captured. We go free all of them, a group by the tower, a group by the glade, and while we're over by the glade, we head up to check on the druids. One druid who has the model of a priest for some unknown reason. Actually, let me take this time to go on a quick tangent here. I understand it's unrealistic for games, especially games made in 2007, to have a unique model for every single NPC to walk the planet, but you would think that important story-centric NPCs would be given their own design. For some of them, they do. Ada, Thaler, Vincent, Yavin, Siegfried, etc. But the Reverend in Chapter 1 is the same model as any priest in the game, and this one druid guy I'm talking about as well. I think they even share the same robes. Or how about Declan? He looks like every other fat merchant in the game, including fucking Odo from chapter 1. There's loads of recycling that honestly breaks immersion somewhat when you realize how jarring this is. I mean, in this instance, there's already a druid model, so why not use that? Maybe give him a white beard or something. Whatever. So this guy tells me to beat the salamander in the swamp. He needs a mushroom from a cave. Turns out this cave is where the last of the brickmakers are being held prisoner. I turn the salamander into cadavers and get the mushroom and return to the druid. He says we must rush to the glade, so I do. He, however, takes his sweet-ass time.
This bitch!
He gets to the glade, we kill the salamander for this area, and we bring the papers back to Declan. Declan has some spy somewhere who happens to be one of the city guards. He tells us a password, and he tells us to run around saying this password to the guards, and I'll just let you experience this head-assery head-on.
The lily...
What? Do you want flowers or something?
I mean,
Go and bother somebody else.
the lily has yet to be...
What? Is that a password?
Is it?
Wait, are you testing me?
No,
Give it up!
I agreed to meet a...
I should toss you. You're lucky I'm receiving a medal from
A medal?
for fighting the Elven terror.
Aren't there more pressing problems? What about...
Do I look like a sap to you? A terrorist bags twice as much gold as a kikimore.
And they're probably much easier to capture.
Capture? One need only identify...
You know, while I'm sitting here running around like a jackass, asking guards about a lily flower and shit, I keep thinking back to that Steam forum that I showed you guys earlier when I was talking about trying to get the money to buy the armor. The fact that this isn't a lazy game. I have a lot of conflicting thoughts roaming around in my head right now that I'll probably sum up after I'm done beating the game, and I film my reaction to that before writing the script. But I want to focus on that a little bit more at this point in my live reaction playthrough parts of the video. I don't know what to call it yet. The more I play this game, the more I realize that that guy was not only 100% correct in that it's not a lazy game, but I think that it harks to more than just getting resources to be stronger in the game, right? Like, yes, you have to grind a lot for money. Yes, you have to grind a lot for resources to upgrade your sword, to buy new armor, to get books, to know more about plants and get more potions and stuff like that, right? Like he's right on that front. But he's also right on the front in that if you want any kind of gratification from like the main quest line, you have to put a lot of work into it. I'm sure I'm going to mention this part in the scripted section for chapter 2 when I'm recounting the story for you guys, but in chapter 2 there was a lot of running back and forth, like a lot of running around, and I can't remember what I said for the end of chapter 2 in my live reaction. For you guys it was like probably about, you know, maybe 30 minutes ago. For me, it was literally like 5 days ago that I finished chapter 2. So I don't really remember what I said, but what I can tell you is that I am so exhausted with the story quests in this game and having you run back and forth, 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 back and forth. Like there is so much obnoxious amount of running around with Geralt's slow ass, and I have not yet decided if it's an all-around bad thing. I'll get back to you on that. Hopefully scripted me will be able to elaborate more on that.
The lily has...
What?
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. 3 lilies make 1.
You could...
Hey guys, real quick, Editor Kaiser here. For some reason, this part of the video did not have audio. I don't know if I accidentally alt-tabbed while I was recording this section or something, but I apologize that. Basically, what this guard tells us is to meet him in the sewers where his friends are going to help me get into the salamander hideout. Whip the shit. We go to the salamander hideout and whip the shit out of some dudes. They were talking to this guy in a mirror who states that he was helping the salamandra, but now they bore him. He mentions Ada as the conspirator, and we exit. As we come out, we see some salamandra fucks walking around. One starts taking a piss, and we execute him for public indecency. Then we turn the corner to see the absolute worst werewolf in video game history. I'm not even kidding when I tell you I had to actively stop playing because I was laughing so hard. This werewolf looks like they found a gorilla model and poorly photoshopped it. Why is its fur dots? What the fuck is happening? Anyway, the werewolf tells us it's that dolt's Vincent, and we opt to not kill it. There's some side stuff with curing it, but I won't get into it as it's just a side mission and it's not really that important. Anyway, we return to Triss and she tells us the mirror guy can't be far, so we go into a house, talk to Ravoid, the king of the neighboring kingdom. And here my past self has a few words to say. Something I recognized about myself just now whenever I was watching that cutscene that hopefully scripted me as just finished explaining to you guys is that I started to get really invested in the politics of this world, which is not something that happens to me a lot. I'm in no means like somebody who never cares about lore in video games. I regularly and religiously watch Fudge Muppet videos for Elder Scrolls lore, and someday here on the channel I plan to play Morrowind and Oblivion, two Elder Scrolls games I've never played, just to not only experience the lore but also to experience those games as a whole. But in general, whenever games or stories in general have like side political conflicts that don't really affect the main story, I tend to just kind of zone out and not worry about it. But throughout this game, the course of this game, whenever a side character brings up political interests, and whenever it's just brought up in general, I tend to pay a lot of attention. I don't know what it is, and to be honest with you, I don't know if I'll figure it out. If I do, I'll let you guys know. But that just kind of is a testament, I think, to how good the story and the world of this game is, that I'm paying attention to political shit in a fucking fantasy game. Maybe I've just grown as a person. I don't know. But yeah, no, I just wanted to quickly touch on that. Declan tells us we need to recruit someone, and it's here we make another decision on who to side with, the Order or the Scoia'tael. I choose the Scoia'tael. While we are talking to them, some schmucks from the Order threaten to break down the door. Triss panics and teleports us right into the Salamander base. We make our way through some pricks and open up a portal to let in our recruits. Kill some more pricks, and Alvar shows up again. He tells the professor to fight us, and then guess what? He runs away. Again. We finally get to kill the professor, but this cheeky fuckstick launches a bolt and collapses the floor. We fall in where this big Kikamore bitch comes out of the floor and eats him. I loot his body and head for the exit where she starts chasing me. Geralt mentions he should ard the pillars, so I ard the pillars, get into this big room, ard a few more pillars, then run out. The queen gets crushed by actually air, and then rocks magically appear, and then they disappear. I loot her body, loot a chest, climb out where the entire Order of the Flaming Rose is ready to arrest me. So yeah, it turns out it was Ada who hired the Salamandra. She asked if we have a last wish, and Geralt agrees to kiss her. She remembers how good the Geralt genitals are and agrees, but right before Triss teleports us away, and here we end chapter 3. So I guess that's chapter 3 over? I didn't actually see, so normally in between chapters it'll like say like, oh, chapter 3 ended and then chapter 4 began, but this is like a whole new area, and I checked the quest logs and there's no like access to anything. So I'm just going to call this the beginning of chapter 4 and tell you guys my chapter 3 thoughts. Chapter 3 was good. I think it was definitely better than chapter 2. There wasn't as much running back and forth for the main story quest, although there was still a lot of running back and forth. But I liked that you were sent to, kind of clear out a bunch of the Salamandra. I feel like chapter 2 had way too much running around, not enough actually doing things. Chapter 2, there was a lot of go talk to this guy, then go talk to this guy about what this guy said, then go talk to that guy, then go back to the original guy. In this one, you go talk to this guy sends you on a quest, you go to kill a bunch of the Salamandra, retrieve some paperwork, go to the swamp, talk to a druid sends you to a cave to get a mushroom, you go back to the druid, then you and the druid go fight some more Salamander guys, you get some paperwork, you go back to Declan says to go make an ass of yourself in front of guards, and then you get to fight some more Salamandra, and possibly a werewolf if you took that option. I didn't, of course you guys know that by now. Then you go recruit either the Scoia'tael or the Order, and then you go fight some more guys, and then you fight some more guys, and you finally get to kill the professor, which is the revenge for Leo, I guess. I'm 3 chapters into this game, and I keep forgetting that Leo exists until either the professor shows up or No, honestly, just until the professor shows up. I'll be completely honest with you guys. For most of this playthrough up until this point, I completely forgot about Leo. In fact, while talking, I remembered Leo existed after I said I killed the professor. Like, that's how forgettable of a character he was. His death is completely meaningless to me still. It has nothing to do with my motivations to continue playing. But I like Chapter 3 better than Chapter 2, but I also like Chapter 1 better than Chapter 2, so I think Chapter 2 is probably going to be my least favorite at this point, but now we're in an island, like, now we're in a different land, I guess, so we're going to get to exploring, see what kind of side quests we can pick up, do some story quests, and, you know, that Triss is just, I might, I'm definitely going to romance her in my next playthrough of this game.
So it's been like a year since I've worked on this video. I don't know what quite took my attention away from this over a year ago, but I do remember that I was working on it. I was very invested in it. I had already had all of the footage together. I had the script already written, and I had up to Chapter 3 edited, and then who knows what happened, but my attention got drawn away and I never finished it. So I was digging through my files and I found all of the old recordings and I found that they were still intact. I went into my Google Docs and found the old script. So you might notice a lot of differences between that me and this me. This me tries not to say things like the R slur and also remembers to wash my fucking hands before I start recording. Then the old me is a moron. So just one thing I want you guys to know, that if you've made it up to this point in the video, first off, thank you. I appreciate that. And second off, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. From now on, editor's commentary will be less about me experiencing things, you know, just a few weeks ago, and more about what I remember happened in the game. So yeah, enjoy Chapter 4 onward, and I'll see you guys at the end of the video. So we get teleported onto some beach of some sort. This literal girl shushes us. Yeah, Gerald, try to randomly teleport out of the air more quietly, you disrespectful shit. We talk to the girl and find out that she apparently knows everything. She tells us about some fish priest dude by the big statue and a love triangle going on in the village. Oh, yay. Anyway, the fish dude tells us the villagers have hired a witcher to kill him and his fish people mates. Turns out this witcher is Berengar, a witcher whose name has come up multiple times, but is such a forgettable part of the story, I've neglected to mention him up until this point. Basically, there's been this witcher who has always been one step ahead of you this entire game. He was the first to be hired to kill the beast, except he didn't. He had a silver sword that Thaler brought in Chapter 2. He was hired to kill the salamander in Chapter 3, except he didn't. And we were told he was dead, and now here he is in all of his glory inside of a cave in the middle of fucking nowhere. Berengar tells us it was him who told the salamander where to find K-Morin and where to find the mutagens. And I'll admit, I kind of saw where he was coming from. See, we find out that the way witchers are made is that we straight up kidnap kids and then force them to drink mutagens and train them to be perfect fighters. So he says salamander is the same and it didn't matter, forgetting that witchers don't rape children and murder people for funsies, but whatever. We leave Berengar to his brooding because we've got shit to do. Chapter 4 feels like the developers had too many ideas and had to use this chapter to get them all out. All of a sudden, we are introduced to a goddess, an ancient armor, a love triangle, a cult, the war subplot of this game reaching a climax, being a father figure to a lost boy, calming tensions between the human villagers and the fish people villagers, of who we see it to see exactly one of the latter. There's so much important story elements that get thrown at us practically at once, and as much as I love the story of this game, it becomes quite a lot to comprehend. You know how in the past chapter, all story quests eventually come together to the same end point, finding who made the beast and helping the villagers, for example, in Chapter 1, Chapter 2, finding the gemstones for the obelisk and the detective mystery thing. In Chapter 4, there are 3 story quests, and none of them correlate with the other in any way. So instead of going step by step like I did in previous chapters, I'm going to speed through all 3 of these because of them only one has to do with the overarching story in any conceivable way. This chapter has practically nothing to do with the Salamandra, and there is only one mention of the war between the Order and the Scoia'tael, so here we go. The first story we are going to take care of is the unrest between the fish people and the village humans. You ask someone named the Fisher King to borrow his boat to go into an island and talk to the Lady of the Lake. Are we in Avalon now? According to the wiki, this is considered the island of Avalon. I haven't read the books, but yeah, I do also hope we get to see Gerald team up with Merlin at some point. Anyway, the Lady of the Lake says that all of her knights went chasing the Holy Grail and now they're dead. This doesn't have anything to do with what we are doing except as a piss poor excuse to have Geralt take care of her problems. Turns out the fish people and the villagers were at peace for a super long ass time, and now these things called the Dagons are roaming around murdering and looking sort of like fish people, and the lady needs you to clear the whole mess up. So you go to get a couple of artifacts, one from the human and one from the fish people, that represent some ancient tale about how the fish people and humans saw the Lady of the Lake's tits and said, hey, maybe we don't hate each other as much. So we bring these artifacts to the lady. She says, good job at doing basically nothing, gives you her blood to put in an altar, summons a Dagon god, and we kill it by killing its minions. No, I'm not kidding. You don't actually damage this thing. You kill all of its children. He dies from heartbreak and assumably graphic alcoholism. The lady, in all of her gratitude, gives us a new silver sword that is weaker than my actual rune sword I crafted last chapter. Turns out this sword is bugged, so fuck me, I guess. Next story time is the love triangle, and good god, the tangle mess that this story made me want to put my head in a bucket of ice water until I could feel something again, because by the end of it, I did not give a single solitary shit about any of these characters. I was so emotionally numb by the end, I'm just gonna blast through this even faster than the last section. There's two sisters who are daughters of the village chief, Selena and Alina. Alina is the older sister who everybody loves. Selena is the younger sister who, well, she says that she's the forgotten one, and I guess that's kind of accurate because no one talks about her, but no one says anything mean about her either. In any case, Alina is supposed to marry a rich merchant, and Selena hates that. This random bloke named Adam we see all of once is in love with Alina and wants to marry her to run away with him, but Alina don't give no shit. She's gonna marry a rich dude. One day, Julian tells us Alina went frolicking in the meadows and twirling in circles and presumably singing a Disney princess song. We go to the meadows and find out Alina has turned into a noon wraith, basically a woman killed before her time, and this version of Alina doesn't realize she's dead. We leave to tell Julian, and on our way out, we see the ultimate nice guy Adam chasing Celine down and screaming at her for apparently killing Alina, and he stabs her, and despite dying in the day, she becomes a night wraith. Okay. Whatever. We go back to Julian and tell him the news. He asks us to either heal Alina or kill her. Well, after not killing the werewolf and a talking ghoul, side quest, don't question it, in chapter 3, we're on the heal, not kill path, so we go talk to Abigail. Remember her? Yeah, she's here now for some reason. Anyway, she tells us that Alina had some super awesome, powerful ancient mirror and it broke, and so if we repair it and make her look at it, she might be healed. So we do this and it sort of works. She just stops being hostile toward us. Oh yeah, she was hostile before. Anyway, we go back to Abigail and she tells us to, and I'm not fucking kidding here, read her a poem. This is the same game that had us heal lycanthropy with the power of true love, after all, so we go get Dandelion, tell him he's got 15 minutes to write a poem, and meet us in the meadows. He meets us there and then puts us on the spot asking us to do a fucking duet. So I select some random answers, make a mental note to curb stomp Dandelion later, and Alina is cured. Selena walks up and apologizes to Alina. Apparently, she got mad and pushed her sister, and she got brained on a rock. We go back to Julian, he pays us 1,000 cock-gurgling orans, and the quest is over. One more story to get through, then just 2 more chapters. We're almost done, lads. Let's get rolling. Early on in the chapter, Dandelion meets us outside the village to tell us Alvin is here. He gives us a love letter from Shawnee and a medallion that Triss wants us to give to Alvin. Alvin is being pseudo-adopted by Alina before she dies, and so we go talk to him. We give him the medallion, and he tells us some salamander tried to kidnap him, but Shani and her absolute badass sexiness kicked him in the fucking balls, and he teleported out. Alina wants to fully adopt Alvin, but Julian doesn't want to. We go talk to Julian, and he understandably says that Alvin needs to be living with people who actually know magic. Yeah, I know I chose to leave him with Shawnee, who doesn't know magic, but that's because bob cuts make my peen hard and I couldn't trust Triss. Anyway, a few things happen. We do some fatherly things with Alvin, give him some life advice, and tell him being a witcher sucks. After finishing the other 2 quests earlier, we find out that the Order is trying to kill the elves who live here in the middle of fucking nowhere. Jesus, bro, the KKK wasn't this dedicated. Calm the fuck down, ordering the flaming grand dragons. The elves in response have taken the village hostage. This includes Alvin. We go in and agree to help the elves escape under the cover of night. The Order doesn't give a shit about our plans and storms the village. Alvin watched too much Victorious, freaks the freak out, and panic teleports out of there. After turning the Order knights into paint for the buildings, we take a boat back to Vizima.
Thoughts on chapter 4. Finding Berengar finally was interesting. Discovering Berengar actively, willingly betrayed the Witchers was a little infuriating at first until you start to learn more about how the Witchers, are, like how they come to be. And it's essentially just kidnapping children and then trading them for their entire lives and attempting to, just make them into killing machines. And it's one of the craziest things. I think it's actually really interesting how similar Kaer Morhen and the Salamanders are in terms of like how they treat children. And Berengar is a pretty relatable character for the most part. Not relatable, but like understandable, sympathetic character for the most part. I enjoy the Lady of Lake. I was entirely 110% surprised that Geralt didn't bone her. In fact, in terms of the chapters, chapter 4 seemed to be the least amount of opportunities to bone. I don't think there was a single sex card gotten in chapter 4. No, I'm sorry. Cecilia. You get the sex card for Cecilia. I want to look this up actually. So apparently there is a Lady of the Lake romance card. I'm curious. I'm curious as to how you get it. Because I did every dialogue option with her. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to like stop this. It actually looks like I missed quite a bit in like chapter 3. Like there's an entire article on the wiki about how you get all of these. It's pretty insane. It's pretty insane. This actually tells you, this particular page of the wiki tells you how to get all of the super rare items and stuff too. This is going to be, I'm going to bookmark this for my second playthrough. Okay, chapter 4, Lakeside. Lady of the Lake. After the hermit quest, you get an option to tell her you want to go on a mission. Tell her it was a jest after you say it. See, I don't remember getting that option. Interesting. You can also do it with a peasant woman, and you can do it with an elven woman. Interesting. See, I was really confused that I only got like one. I was confused that I only got the option for one. So it just turns out that I just missed a whole bunch. And actually going back through some of these chapters, it turns out that I missed a lot of opportunities. Now it looks like I got all of them in chapter 2, I think. Yes, I got all of them in chapter 2. I got all of the ones in chapter 1 that you can get. But chapter 3, I missed a whole bunch. I missed a whole bunch of ones in chapter 3. Now, I'm reading the wiki for chapter 5, and it turns out that of the things, you can only get one of these per game. So in order to get oh, this is hilarious. This is hilarious. All right, so I'm sorry for that little sidetrack there. That just kind of tells you how prevalent the sex is in this game, that I was so surprised I only got one, that I actually had to look up if there were more. And yeah, there were more. There were a lot more. That being said, let's get on to chapter 5 and hand it back over to my scripted self.
As we approach the final 2 chapters of this game, I'm starting to realize exactly how little reviewing I've been doing. So in place of boring you with the story, here I'm going to go over some things I've noticed up until this point. Number 1, the atmosphere of this game is one of the most solid things I've ever experienced. Just walking around, exploring the world, fighting monsters, talking to characters, and just generally doing witchery stuff, the world feels incredibly immersive and it's easy to get lost in. Many times during my playthrough, I would find myself mindlessly wandering around and getting lost in the world. Or that could have just been the terrible map design. 2, the story has its hiccups. During my initial playthrough, I felt like it was one of the greatest video game story presentation-wise, and I still fell enamored with it enough to be excited to play other games and order the novels, possibly even watch the Netflix series. I'm not kidding here. I'm about to start Witcher 2 while I'm writing the script. I love this world and the world building in it. Geralt and his cast of friends are genuinely interesting. However, I think looking back, I had a bit of Stockholm Syndrome because after recounting most of the plot for you, I realized how much shit irritated me. The love triangle of chapter 4 is the biggest problem in the forefront of my mind. 3, the combat has not gotten better. It's flashier than before. Sure, several talents add more attacks to each combos, but the new combos are completely out of your control. And all it does is add artificial challenge to combat by changing the timing of the flaming sword icon. The signs have up to this point mostly proven worthless. I've used only Ard for the first 2.5 chapters, and only started using Igni when I realized it has crowd control abilities of a tactical nuclear strike. Seriously, upgrading this damn thing enough and you're doing the equivalent of an adult dragon from D&D with a full-powered breath weapon on a level 5 party. Number 4, Geralt is so goddamn slow! I know, guys, I know I keep bringing this up, but for fuck's sakes, it's never better. Geralt moves like he's got his feet stuck in buckets of wet cement. He just leisurely jogs everywhere and like a middle-aged mom trying to postpone her inevitable heart attack from too many years of trying to act like her son isn't smoking weed and her husband hasn't been sleeping with his secretary. This is one of the things that weighs heavily on that atmosphere of this game I love so much. And combine this with the very small and confusing maps, the game starts off fine with the map thing only being a large area that takes forever to dig through, but eventually the maps get confusing with vertical barriers that cause you to have to take the long way around a lot, and you'll often find yourself running into dead ends you didn't realize were coming. The swamp level is especially obnoxious, as this is the main map, shows a sprawling open area to traverse, but you'll hit an obnoxious amount of invisible walls that spiderweb their way throughout the middle of the map. The only way you can navigate is a piss-poor minimap. It has silver blobs that represent the aforementioned walls that show you how to navigate, but these aren't as helpful as you think they are. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I'm 20 pages into the script and I'm getting extremely tired, as I'm sure you are as well, so let's wrap this shit up. We finally meet King Foltress. He tells us his daughter has caught the curse of the Striga again. We go to her crypt and cure her, find out that the Order was behind this shit. After we cure her, the king sends a message that the Salamander is in some shithole manor. We go to the manor and finally get to fight Alvar's bitch as he runs away once again to make us fight some big monster he swears is his ultimate weapon. I kill it inside 65 seconds, but maybe that was just all the over-leveling I tend to do in games. Go to fight Alvar, realizes finally he doesn't run away. I forgave Barangar earlier in a side quest, so he shows up to help, dies instantly, boo-hoo. I kill Alvar and I leave. Salamandra is done. We have the mutagens, so the game is done, right? Wrong, asshole!
I love the characters in this game. I have to stop and really talk about, like, some of the characters that are Geralt's old friends. Triss is a badass. Shawnee is a badass. I love both Triss and Shawnee. I love Shawnee more at this point, as I'm sure Scripted Me will have told you. But they're both amazing characters. Dandelion is a fucking dork, a useless pain in the fucking ass, but I still enjoy him as a character. Zoltan is hilarious. This game is so good at world building that at this point, I'm so excited to get done with it. I mean, I have to leave for work in like 2 hours, right? And every day that I've had to stop playing this game to go to work since like mid chapter 2 has been terrible. Like, I hate it. I hate having to stop playing this game. It's hella addicting. The story, the side questing, just everything up until this point, the world building, it's so addicting. And I am so excited to not only finish this game and get this video, you know, written, recorded, and pushed out for you guys, but I'm also excited to replay this game. You know what I mean? I'm excited to go back and try the other pathways, right? Try siding with the Order, right? Like, I was just going to do a second playthrough of this game. I'm probably going to do 2 more playthroughs of this game just to see what happens whenever you follow a neutral path, or just see what happens whenever you follow a to see what happens whenever you side with the Order, stuff like that. I want to go back and slay all the trophy beasts and collect as many sex cards as I can. As much as I've been complaining about this fucking thing, you know, both in general in real life, and I'm sure I've talked about it a lot in the scripted section up until this point. At least that's what I plan to put in the scripted section. As much as I've complained about the sex minigame, there's something in that tickles that little 14-year-old like part of my brain that's just like, titties. Like, it's nothing but a stupid male power fantasy to be able to just sleep with all these women, but there's this small level of incessant joy that I get whenever I among all ridiculous circumstances get this taken care of. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's dumb fun. This game is just dumb fun with intelligent world building.
Oh, I'm almost done. Okay, here we go. We report to Foltress, find out Jock, the leader and founder of the Order, is behind all this shit, and we're sent to kill him. He's held up somewhere trying to convince people he's a good guy. Geralt says, kiss all the babies you want, I'm still going to run you through like LMFAO runs through hoes like Drano, and he teleports us to this dream dimension thing. He says this is the future he's trying to save humanity from. I ignore his bullshit and chase him down. Death shows up again and tells us Jock belongs to him. We say nay, kill Death in 30 seconds because being overleveled makes this shit combat go by faster. We walk over to the Jock, kill him using the silver sword.
That sword is for monsters.
Right you are, you absolute bastard, and he has a medallion we gave Alvin. This game tries to be ambiguous, but we pretty much gather that it is Alvin. We return from the dream realm, Geralt says some weird shit, and a cutscene with no audio plays, in which someone tries to kill the king, and we save him.
This is the worst good game I've ever played in my life. And I can't think of another way to describe this entire experiences. I know, like, at this point, you guys are just expecting me to give you my thoughts on the epilogue. And you know what? Here's my thoughts on the epilogue. Perfectly executed, one through line story. You don't have to worry about any side quests. It is just getting to the end of your goals for this game, and it wraps up nicely. Jock is 110% Alvin. Like, all the evidence is there. Geralt pretty much confirms it at the end after you take the amulet thing off of him. Starts with a D. I can't pronounce it. That's 110% Alvin. Like, there's just no getting around that. I will say that this game's greatest strength is its story. Its story, its atmosphere, its very creation of a world that can immerse you in that world. Short of game crashes, bugs, and sometimes just really, really piss poor optimization. I want to take this time, like, as a live reaction, just kind of tell you guys my thoughts of the game and what I can remember from it over the past 7 days or so. 7 to 8 days of playing it. I've had to stop a lot to kind of bring up my, kind of go to work and things like that. And I have another video planned to talk about, like, the making of this project and everything. So I'm not going to get into too much detail, but from what I can tell you guys is this is how I feel about this game in the moment, finishing it before future me scripts out an entire video to talk to you guys. This is my feelings. Great story, great atmosphere, great immersion, great delivery, really bad gameplay. Really terrible gameplay. Most of the potions are useless. I only really ever use Swallow for the majority of the game. I started using Tawny Owl in the end because the Ignis sign was really decent for crowd control. The Ard sign is really good in the beginning of the game, and you'll only ever use Ardent Igni. I use the Quinn sign, which is the shield one, very, very rarely. Very, very rarely. And overall, I gotta say that the combat is incredibly boring. Watching Geralt do these flourishes and stuff like that was kind of cool, but the combat of this game is just left click, flaming sword, left click, flaming sword, left click, flaming sword, surrounded by enemies, double tap W, hop over some guy, and then cast the Ignis sign, left click, flaming sword, left click, flaming sword. It's so boring. It's so boring. And leveling up Geralt through, like, side questing and that is not essential to the game, but I swear to God it almost is, just so you can get his swords really powerful, get his styles really powerful and stuff, and just make the combat quicker, because the sooner you are done with combat, the sooner you can get back to enjoying the story of the game and its atmosphere. Geralt moves way too fucking slow. Way too goddamn slow. I played this game. Hold on. I'm actually tell you what my Steam hours in this game are. My Steam hours in this game as of making this reaction recording are 73.6 hours. You can knock 1 hour off of that for when I played the game before I decided to do this review. So 72 hours I spent in this game. And I guarantee you about probably a third of that is just lugging Geralt's ass from place to fucking place. It's so painful. It's so painful. The looting system is okay, I guess. It's average. Click on a body, you get their inventory, you get to take whatever you want out of the inventory. You're going to find out very soon that food and drink are completely worthless, and I had them clog up my inventory so much. So much. I was like, man, what am I going to need this food? Because food and drink doesn't immediately restore your vitality and your endurance. It acts like potions without giving you toxicity of potions. But the thing is that on an intermediate difficulty, I barely had to use potions. Again, the only one I really used for the majority of the game was the swallow, which generates vitality over time. This was on the intermediate difficulty. There's only 3 difficulties. So in general, the gameplay is just really fucking boring. Alchemical ingredients, oh my god, by the end of the game, I had to start dropping them in order to get the stuff that I needed for contracts, because gathering plants and all that just became so useless after a while. There's so much in this game that bogs it down. Of the 5 signs, 2 of them are useful, 1 of them is semi-useful, maybe kind of sort of sometimes. Of the, like, I think 30 different potions, I only used 2 for them, or used 1 for the majority of the game. But near the end of the game, I started using another one just because I needed the signs a little bit more for crowd control, but not even to survive, just to get the boring ass combat over with. I barely use the dodge mechanic because there's no need, like the little flip over people, because dodging and parrying is not something you can actively do. It's a chance to happen that you increase with your talents. Just overall, just some of the gameplay is so boring. I can honestly say, as much as I hate them, I probably would have enjoyed this game much better as a walking simulator, because it's just so freaking boring. The side questing is really interesting, though. You can open up a lot of the world and understand a lot of the of how the game plays and stuff like that. And there's little fun side things that you can do. Dice poker was actually really interesting to do. Fist fighting, once I figured it out, was really interesting to do. The sex mini game was, I don't know what future me is going to do, what scripted me is going to do, but I can honestly say beyond a shadow of a doubt that future me, that me currently has a love-hate relationship with that sex mini game, because on the one hand, I enjoyed the crap out of it. It's a collectible game. I enjoy collectible things inside video games. If you make a video game, especially if it's an adventure game, open world game, I don't give a fuck. If you give me some random ass shit that I have to collect, I will go out of my way to try to collect all of it. And on another playthrough, I will use a guide to ensure I collect all of it. And this stupid ass misogynistic collectible naked lady card game is no exception. My higher intelligence says that it was stupid. There was way too much of it. It felt forced at times. It was so gratuitous for no reason. My addictive personality just wants to collect all of them, and the 14-year-old me is ready to beat his meat. All in all, I love and hate this game. I hate the gameplay. I fucking loathe it from the core of my very soul. But I love the atmosphere. I love the stories. I love Geralt. I love the side characters. I love the interaction with this world. I am a fan of the Witcher franchise from this alone. After I'm done recording this, I'm gonna go online. I'm gonna get the Witcher books, probably as an Audible version to keep my ADHD in check. But I'm gonna get the Witcher books. I want to experience this stuff. And I have The Witcher 2 and 3 on my computer, and you can bet that when this video is done and I am ready to and I'm done with like recording it and everything, it's ready to post, you can bet when all of this is finished, I will be playing The Witcher 2 almost immediately, and I will do a video on it for sure, because god damn it, I love this franchise, I love this world, I love this collection of events. But please, please, CD Projekt Red, please make The Witcher 2 more fun to play. I'm gonna pass it back to Scripted Me and see if he's got anything to add.
So, like I said in chapter 4, obviously this entire thing was not done in the span that the live reaction or the scripted version said that it was done. It sat in a folder unfinished for over a year. And I'm actually very happy I found it. I'm so happy I found it. At first, when I found it, I thought I had actually lost some of the footage, and I won't get into the full story, but it turns out that some of the footage was kind of swapped around and numbered incorrectly. I do definitely want to do something like this again, but I definitely want to be more organized next time I did it. When I was reading the parts of the script for chapters 4, 5, and the epilogue, I was looking at the notes, the time notes, so I could find the proper footage to sync up correctly. And I realized that there was a lot of jokes, a lot of complaints, a lot of criticisms that I did not put into the script at all. So definitely the next time I'm writing the script, I need to make sure that I refer to my notes more often. But I thought that this was really fun. There was a lot of jokes that I never really played around with trying to do before, things like including clips from the game. And, you know, when I was describing the story, just throwing in, you know, little jabs here and there that I thought was really fun. Watching back the footage that I did, you know, a year and a half ago, I definitely want to change the way that I approach some of the jokes that I made. Like I said in the beginning of chapter 4, I ended up using, I called the Reverend, and then I put the R slur in there. And even though I'm autistic and technically I can say it, I guess, I don't really like it that much anymore. I find it to be in the cringy, you know, 16-year-old humor camp. 100% sure. So I definitely want to do something like this again. I think a video on The Witcher 2 would be fun. I just need to figure out the logistics of it for sure. I'm going to rewatch this video once I'm done with it and see what I'll change, what I'll take out, what I'll keep in. But I think that the whole thing of having scripted versions, live reaction versions, and then like editor's notes, you know, while I'm editing the audio, turn the camera on and be like, hey, editor here, this is something that I forgot to mention, would all be, is all incredibly fun, and it's different, and it's something that I enjoy, and I'm just smiling so much because watching this footage back, watching what I did, and even having to edit some of it, I had a lot of moments in the old footage where it was repeating, it was slow. I was keeping in like a lot of long spaces of air where I just wasn't saying anything. Currently, as I'm recording this, the video is at 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I'm giving you a long ass recap of the video. I know. But my point is that I really enjoyed making this video. I really enjoyed finishing it. I'm so happy I found it again. I can't believe I forgot about it for so long. But what I want to know is what you guys think in the comments. If you've played The Witcher, tell me what you think about it. Tell me if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. And if you want to see more videos like this, more of these really extensive deep dives into very specific video games, then let me know. I actually have an idea to do one on the original Sly Cooper trilogy. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, please let me know. I want to know. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Did I just do like a kissy thing? What the fuck am I doing?